Hello everybody, and welcome to Synergist Quick Tips. My name is Michael Sayago, and today I'll be sharing some quick tips about the Java optional class. So let's get down to business. If you're like me, you develop software in a service-oriented environment, or you have a lot of web clients, or you just in general need to use something that someone else made, and they documented poorly, and you just want to handle what it returns without it destroying your process. Here, for example, is an interface that you need. It's poorly documented, return values are ambiguous, and in this example, you just have no control over what it actually returns, or if what it returns will change between versions. In this case, you want to get a collection via the getThatStuff method. The question is, if there are 0 results, will it return an empty collection, or will it return null? I'm sure there is a good answer, and I'm sure you know what that answer is, but unfortunately for you and for me, the fellow who wrote the implementation doesn't know what the good answer is, and you can't get a hold of him no matter how much you call. So, how will you make sure you don't get a null pointer exception when you want to iterate over the result? Well, one solution is an if block. If it's not null, do the thing you need with the stuff. And if blocks are okay, they work, but personally they irritate me. I'm writing an extra check that has to nest additional code within curly braces, and I just don't want to do it. And this is where a quick tip comes in. Instead of getting the result, comparing it to null, and then deciding to operate over it across multiple lines of code, we can consolidate our retrieval and null checks into one line, as well as provide an alternative answer in the event that we do get a null back. In our example here, you can see that we wrap the call to getThatStuff in an optional ofNullable call, and follow up with an orElseGet call of ArrayListNew. What this does for us is it tries to get a non-null result, and if it can't, then we still get the alternative of a non-null result. Then our for loop that follows doesn't have to worry at all about hitting a null pointer when it goes to iterate. 8 scenarios. Suppose you want to try to get a thing from some external interface, but you know in your heart of hearts that if you can't get that thing because it doesn't exist, then you want to create it based on some criteria. Well, as you can see here, you could fall back on our trusty, gratuitously curly-braced friend, the if clause, or you could wrap your get call in an optional ofNullable, and if you get a null answer back, then you can create your own automatically. Functionally, they're equivalent, but I personally like collapsing them all into one line, because isn't concise code just fun? And finally, just some notes on using optionals. You could get the details from the Java doc, but then you wouldn't have my soothing voice telling you, would you? Well, first, if you want to gracefully handle null scenarios, use optional ofNullable and not optional of. The latter will throw an exception. And you know what? In your use case, you might want an exception, so go for it. But just be aware that if you want to be able to operate if a null comes back without receiving an exception, then you should use ofNullable. Second, in general, you want to use orElseGet and not orElse. orElseGet takes a supplier argument, and that supplier is only executed if you get that null result back. orElse takes a type parameter, and so if you add a method call or an instantiation to that, then whatever parameter you provide will execute prior to the optional call. This can be rather unpleasant for you if the parameter you pass in is a method that adds something to your database. That's all I have for you today. Once again, this is Michael Sayago for Synergist Computing. Thanks for checking out my quick tip. Be sure to check out our other videos on YouTube, and visit us at www.synergistcomputing.com.